The restaurant buzzed with quiet conversation, the soft clatter of trays and the faint hiss of a fryer working in the back. It was early evening. Warm sunlight streamed through the wide windows, stretching golden shadows across the polished floor. The air was thick with the smell of fried chicken, fresh coffee, and the faint sting of cleaning solution. Most customers chatted casually, unaware that tension was about to ripple through the calm. Oliver adjusted the name tag on his uniform and wiped a small smudge from the counter. At 30, he had mastered the art of staying calm under pressure. Years in the restaurant business had taught him how to smile through frustration, handle unreasonable complaints, and stay professional without losing his dignity. Still, something told him tonight would test those skills more than ever. The bell above the door jingled sharply, slicing through the noise. In walked Charlotte. She was impossible to ignore, a middle-aged woman with short blonde hair and a presence that demanded attention. Her denim jacket was stretched neatly over a pastel blouse, her dark jeans paired with tan ankle boots. Her eyes swept across the room like a hawk searching for a target. When she spotted Oliver, she strode straight to the counter, planting both hands firmly on it. Her lips were pressed into a tight line, her eyes wide with irritation. She shoved a plate toward him, a piece of half-eaten chicken sitting in a scatter of crumbs and streaks. "This is unacceptable," Charlotte snapped, her voice loud enough to make nearby diners turn their heads. "Look at this. Half-eaten. I want a full refund right now." Oliver drew in a slow, steady breath. He had seen his share of difficult customers, but something about Charlotte's tone made the air feel charged. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice even and his expression calm. "I'm happy to help, ma'am," he said. "But I need to understand exactly what went wrong." Charlotte huffed, waving the plate in frustration. "What's wrong? You call this food? I barely got to eat any of it. I want my money back now." The nearby tables had gone quiet. A mother gently hushed her child. A man lowered his phone. A couple whispered to each other, watching as the tension unfolded like a live performance. Oliver studied Charlotte carefully. The tightness in her shoulders, the dart of her eyes, the way her breathing quickened despite her attempt to appear composed. He sensed there was more behind this outburst than just a bad meal. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I understand you're upset. Let's make sure there's no misunderstanding. We have security footage that records all orders and dining activity. I can review it and confirm what happened." Charlotte's face flickered, a hint of uncertainty breaking through her confidence. "Security footage? You don't need that. Just look. I barely touched it." Oliver nodded calmly. "I understand. And that's exactly why I want to be sure we handle this fairly. It'll only take a moment." The plate sat between them like evidence. Crumbs scattered across the counter, glinting under the lights. Charlotte glanced around the restaurant, suddenly aware of the quiet eyes on her. Oliver tapped the tablet beside him, his movements deliberate and composed. The screen lit up, reflecting softly in his focused eyes. Charlotte leaned forward, trying to peek before he turned it toward her. "You really think that thing can prove anything?" she challenged, her voice edged with nerves. "I know what I ate. You can't fool me." Oliver allowed a faint, steady smile. "I'm not trying to fool anyone," he replied. "I just want to make sure everything is fair." A hush settled over the dining room. Even the kitchen noise seemed to fade as everyone waited. The tension was electric, fragile and heavy all at once. Charlotte's fingers tapped against the counter, her frustration trembling beneath the surface. Oliver stayed poised, his calm presence a quiet contrast to her storm. He tapped the tablet once more, pulling up the timeline of events, ready to let the truth speak for itself. Charlotte leaned closer, squinting at the screen. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. The anticipation in the room thickened, a quiet, heavy pause before the truth broke loose. For a moment, she froze mid-gesture, her anger clashing with confusion. Oliver's heartbeat stayed steady, though inside a surge of quiet satisfaction ran through him. He could feel it. The truth was about to surface. The fragile armor of arrogance that Charlotte wore so proudly was beginning to crack. "You're really taking your time, aren't you?" she said, her tone sharp but uncertain. "I don't have all night. I want this resolved now." Oliver kept his voice calm and deliberate. "We're almost there," he said, tapping the tablet to a specific frame. Just a few more seconds to make sure it's accurate. That's important, isn't it? Charlotte's scowl deepened, but curiosity pulled her closer. Her eyes narrowed, fixed on the glowing screen, unaware that she was moments away from confronting her own reflection in the truth. The restaurant felt smaller now, every whisper and shuffle magnified. Diners leaned in, their attention drawn to the quiet showdown at the counter. Oliver's hand hovered over the tablet. Time itself seemed to pause. Charlotte stood bristling with indignation, unaware that her story was seconds from unraveling. A heavy silence settled over the room. Each breath seemed to sync with an unseen countdown. Then, with a slow, precise tap, Oliver brought the footage to life. Charlotte's eyes widened as the image on the screen revealed her, sitting at her table mid-bite, taking deliberate mouthfuls of the same chicken she now claimed was untouched. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted, caught between shock and denial. The room collectively inhaled. Nearby diners leaned forward, watching in stunned silence. Charlotte's chest rose and fell quickly, her once confident posture faltering. Oliver's calm gaze stayed locked on hers, steady and unyielding, a quiet anchor in the storm she had stirred. The plate between them sat as silent evidence, its crumbs and streaks of sauce now transformed into proof. Charlotte blinked rapidly, trying to gather herself as the footage continued in slow motion, her laughing, chewing, and savoring each bite. The scene was undeniable. This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I barely ate any of it. There must be some mistake." Oliver let the moment breathe. He didn't need to argue. The truth was already doing that for him. Around them, diners exchanged looks, disbelief, amusement, a few muffled chuckles. The authority Charlotte once commanded had vanished. When he finally spoke, his tone was calm and even. "Ma'am, the footage shows exactly what happened. You can clearly see how much was eaten before you came to the counter. I don't believe there's been any mistake." Charlotte's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes darted toward the crowd that had gathered, their curiosity impossible to ignore. Some diners tried to hide their smiles. Others simply watched, fascinated by the shift in power. She had spent years expecting people to yield to her voice, to her demands. But tonight, the story no longer belonged to her. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her words shaky. "I demand you delete that footage. You can't just—" Oliver raised one finger, cutting her off without raising his tone. "I'm not deleting anything," he said firmly. "That footage is part of our standard procedure. It protects both our customers and the restaurant. It doesn't lie, and it ensures fairness for everyone." Charlotte's expression flickered between panic and disbelief. Her mind scrambled for a way out, but every denial fell flat under the weight of the evidence before her. Oliver stayed composed, letting the silence drive the point home. Her earlier confidence crumbled, replaced by unease. Oliver allowed himself a small, restrained smile, not of victory, but of justice quietly restored. "You see, ma'am," he said, his tone gentle but resolute, "honesty goes a long way. When you eat the meal, you pay for it. That's how fairness works." Charlotte's hands trembled as she gestured toward the plate, her words failing her completely. The truth had spoken louder than anything she could say. I just didn't feel like I was going to leave some," Charlotte stammered. Her voice faltered mid-sentence, trembling under the weight of 100 watching eyes. Oliver tilted his head slightly, listening with calm, analytical patience, a silence that made her fluster even more. He didn't interrupt or mock her. He let the truth unravel on its own, knowing it would strike deeper if she tripped over her own lies. A few diners quietly reached for their phones, discreetly recording what was becoming an unmistakable viral moment. Others exchanged glances, some shaking their heads, others pressing their lips together to suppress laughter. The air felt charged, humming with tension, curiosity, and disbelief. "Do you really think this is acceptable behavior?" Oliver asked softly, angling the tablet so she could see herself from multiple angles. "Do you think it's fair to demand a refund for food you already ate? To the staff? To the other customers?" Charlotte's face turned crimson, Her carefully practiced composure had collapsed completely. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Each frame on the tablet told the same undeniable story. Every bite she had taken, every crumb she had left, every movement caught in crisp detail. There was no explaining it away, no version of the truth that could hide what was already seen. Oliver allowed the silence to stretch, giving her time to feel the full weight of it, not to humiliate, but to teach. She wasn't just exposed for dishonesty. She was exposed in front of an entire audience. The realization hit her all at once. The humiliation was immediate, sharp, and public. "You see, ma'am," Oliver said finally, his voice even and controlled. "We handle complaints when they're real. We make things right when there's an honest mistake. But we can't let dishonesty decide how we do business. That wouldn't be fair to anyone." Charlotte's eyes darted across the room, catching the stares, the quiet smirks, the glowing screens of phones pointed her way. She wanted to speak, to deny, to deflect, to command, but every attempt died before it left her lips. Her confidence had dissolved entirely, leaving behind only panic and disbelief. Oliver slowly lifted the tablet, not to shame her, but to ensure the truth was visible to anyone still unsure. A murmur ran through the room. A few chuckles followed. The truth had done what no argument could. "You understand now," Oliver said, meeting her eyes with quiet resolve. "This is why we review everything. Not to punish anyone, but to make sure we're fair. And fairness in this case means being honest about what you've eaten." Charlotte's hands trembled as she reached for the plate, as if grasping for a piece of control already lost. Her mouth opened, but the words came out faint and broken, a last attempt to salvage pride that had already slipped away. The restaurant was silent except for the occasional scrape of a chair or whisper between diners. The energy had shifted entirely. The authority Charlotte once wielded was gone, replaced by the humbling weight of accountability. She looked at Oliver, eyes wide, searching for some trace of mercy or forgiveness, anything that could dull the sting of her own actions. But Oliver remained steady, his calm composure speaking louder than judgment ever could. The half-eaten chicken sat between them, the quiet centerpiece of a lesson in honesty. Charlotte's gaze flicked between the plate and the glowing tablet screen. Recognition and embarrassment flooded her expression, followed by the slow, sinking realization that there was no escape. In that suspended moment, with the restaurant watching in silence, the truth had spoken, and the scales had tipped. Charlotte's face burned red with shame. Her once commanding voice had vanished, replaced by a trembling whisper. I don't know what to say," she murmured, her words breaking under the weight of the truth. Oliver didn't need to respond. The moment said everything. Her entitlement, once so bold and commanding, found no refuge under the eyes of a public now aware of her deception. Oliver tilted the tablet slightly, letting Charlotte see the truth from every angle. Each bite she had taken, each satisfied expression she had tried to hide. When he spoke, his tone carried quiet authority, the kind that needed no volume to be felt. "This footage is very clear, ma'am. It shows exactly what happened. You ate the chicken and you enjoyed it. That means the refund you're demanding isn't justified." Charlotte's hands trembled as she waved them helplessly. "But I didn't eat that much." "You can't possibly," Oliver cut in, his voice calm but unwavering. "The video doesn't lie. It shows every bite, every moment. This isn't about how much you think you ate. It's about what the evidence shows. Honesty isn't optional here." The air in the restaurant grew heavy, charged with quiet anticipation and the thrill of justice unfolding. Nearby diners leaned forward, whispering to each other, some subtly raising their phones to record the moment. The scene was electric, a perfect collision of arrogance and accountability that held everyone's attention. Charlotte's eyes flicked back to the screen. She watched herself, her own movements, her own choices, captured in perfect detail. Realization dawned with brutal clarity. She couldn't twist the truth anymore. "It's not fair," she said weakly, her voice cracking. "I deserve better. This is ridiculous." Oliver shook his head, his composure unshaken. "Fairness isn't about getting what you want. It's about the truth. And the truth, as you can see, doesn't support your claim." Charlotte's breathing quickened, uneven and shallow. Her gaze darted around the room, desperate for support, for someone to validate her outrage. But the faces staring back offered none. Some held faint smiles. Others simply watched in silence, their expressions reflecting quiet satisfaction. The weight of exposure pressed down on her. The arrogance that had once fueled her had drained away, leaving only the sting of humiliation. Oliver leaned in slightly, his voice low but firm. "You have two choices, ma'am. Accept the truth and move on, or keep arguing and make this worse for yourself. The footage doesn't change, and neither does reality." Charlotte's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She opened her mouth, searching for a final defense, but the words never came. The truth was too solid, too visible to deny. Around them, the diners now saw everything clearly. The tension that had filled the air moments ago shifted into something resolute, the quiet understanding that justice had been served. Oliver's expression softened slightly, not with triumph, but with the calm satisfaction of seeing fairness restored. The balance had been corrected. "The refund won't be issued," he said evenly, "because there's no reason for one. You ate the food. You enjoyed it. That's the truth." Charlotte's shoulders sagged, the last traces of defiance leaving her body. Her hands dropped to the counter as resignation set in. She looked around the restaurant, the stares, the subtle smiles, the phones discreetly recording, and knew there was nothing left to defend. Her entitlement, once her shield, had become her downfall. I guess I understand," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Oliver gave a small nod, his tone steady. "Good, that's all we ask for, honesty. It's much easier than pretending and getting caught." The silence lingered for a beat before the world seemed to exhale. The diners slowly returned to their meals, the hum of conversation and clatter of dishes filling the space again. Charlotte turned and walked toward the door, her steps quick and uneven, her face flushed with shame. The bell above the entrance jingled softly as she pushed it open and disappeared into the evening light. Oliver straightened the counter, calm once more. Justice, quiet but absolute, had been served. Some glanced at Oliver with quiet admiration, others with relief that the confrontation had ended without chaos. He returned to the counter, wiping it down with calm, deliberate movements. A small, satisfied smile tugged at his lips. Glancing at the tablet one last time, he ensured the footage was saved, untouched and secure, a clear record of the evening's lesson. The weight in the air had lifted, replaced by the quiet satisfaction that comes from seeing truth and fairness prevail. He drew in a slow breath as the restaurant settled back into its rhythm. The clatter of trays, the hum of the fryer, the soft murmur of conversation. Life resumed, ordinary once again. Yet the memory of what had unfolded lingered like a faint echo, a reminder that honesty always finds its moment and deceit, no matter how confident, cannot stand for long. Charlotte's departure left behind more than silence. It left a lesson, a subtle warning etched into the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. She had arrived demanding a refund, wrapped in arrogance and entitlement, but had been met with something far stronger: undeniable truth. Her public exposure hadn't been cruel. It had been precise, measured, and entirely deserved. Oliver straightened and looked around, at the stacked plates, the bustling kitchen, the steady flow of new orders. Balance had been restored. Order maintained. The confrontation was over. But its message remained. Actions have consequences, and integrity, patience, and calm resolve can stand firm against even the loudest voices of entitlement. As he returned to his duties, a faint knowing smile lingered on his face. He understood how stories like this spread, whispered between customers, shared online, remembered for their lesson. The satisfaction was quiet but deep. Fairness had been served, and justice had found its place. Still, a thought lingered in the back of his mind, a quiet awareness that the world was full of people like Charlotte. Each one testing boundaries, each one believing they could twist reality to their will. But Oliver also knew something else. When truth stands firm, justice doesn't need to shout. It simply arrives, calm, precise, and undeniable. The evening had delivered its message, and for Oliver that was enough.